Hey guys, it's the Chad, your C10 truck nerd. Well, over the last few months, I've been selling a ton of old C10 parts, trying to stockpile a little bit of money to finish the interior of my 30 by 40 shop. And really what I need to do is come up with a game plan on what type of insulation and wall coverings I want to use to finish this interior. Now, I've done a ton of research and compared a lot of prices on materials, and I think I've got it narrowed down to just a few options. So stick around and I'll show you guys what kind of budget ideas that I came up with. So when I decided to build my dream shop, I had grand ideas of having insulated concrete floors, stem walls, floor drains. I was gonna have plumbing out here, and it was just gonna be a sweet interior man cave, but I quickly learned along the way that all those things cost a fortune, and I did absolutely none of those. But what I didn't want to skimp on was having a nice, tight, insulated building. And that's kind of why we went to the traditional garage style build, because we could use 2x6 walls. That way I could get at least an R19 insulation in those wall cavities. And then upstairs, we didn't use storage trusses. That way we could get a bunch of insulation up there too. I really wanted a tighter shop than my house is, and that's really not hard to do because it's 30 plus years old. But I figured, hey, I got 3 girls and my wife, so eventually I'll probably be staying out here during their teenage years. So by now, most of you guys know that I'm cheap and I'm really looking to get the most bang for my buck out of this shop. Now, most contractors would tell me to go through and use the best insulation as I possibly could, which generally I would agree with, but this is a detached shop. I really don't have that much money right now. The best comes at a price tag, and I've bought a lot of C10s and C10 parts already this year. So my budget is kind of, if I go grab 10,000 stuffed animals out of the girls' room, shove them in the walls and close it up, it's about what I can afford. So I'm gonna go through, base all my pricing off the big box stores of Home Depot, Lowe's, and Menards that we have here in town. I'm also gonna reach out to another contractor buddy and a couple local insulation companies to see what they can do. So first off, let's start with the insulation and then we'll move over to the wall coverings. So first, let's talk about the insulation for our walls. And again, this is a 30 by 40 with 12-foot walls with 2x6 construction. So when it comes to the different types of insulation that you can buy at a big box store, you've got rock wool, which is kind of similar to fiberglass bats, but it's made out of rock. It repels water much more and is much more fire resistant. Then you have recycled blue jean bats, and that's exactly what it is. It's old blue jeans that they've recycled, and you can use that in an R13 or even an R19, but it comes at a price tag and it's kind of hard to find. Next would be your traditional and most common fiberglass bat insulation. You can get that faced or unfaced. It's either a paper or foil that kind of acts as a vapor barrier. The face is kind of nice because you can use it and actually staple it to your wall studs or your rafters up there to keep it in place. And then you would have rigid foam board. Now, rigid foam board, this is one I probably wouldn't be using on a traditional garage because it is very expensive. It runs about $55 per panel for an R10, which is a 2-inch. The only time I'd probably use that is like the zip system. They make it as sheeting, so you can have a 1.5-inch or 2-inch foam board, then your OSB, and then your zip system sheeting over the top of it. Then you put that on the outside of the building, and then you can use a ton of insulation on the interior. So that'd be a great option if you were a bazillionaire, which I'm not. Now, all these would be DIYs. Then we move on to something that I'd probably have to hire a professional for, which would be wet blown cellulose, which is the recycled newspaper. What they do is they get it wet, they spray it into the wall cavities, it stays formed together. Once it dries, then you can cover it up. Then they have open cell spray foam, a closed cell spray foam, and probably one of the best R values would be a closed cell spray foam, like a 2-inch in the walls, and then following it up with bat insulation, like an R13 over the top of that. That would be a nice tight building. All right, so when it comes to pricing, we're kind of looking at how much it costs per square foot for each of these different types that we have out here. So like I said, rock wool is a little bit expensive. It runs at $1.34 a square foot. Man, being left-handed, is awkward, you know. The Bat Blue Jeans, it runs about I don't know, between $1.21 and $1.25 per square foot. And again, you're gonna have a hard time finding this at your local box stores. It's just not that common of an option of insulation out there. Now when it comes to the fiberglass, again, all these I'm kind of looking at an R19 for these 2x6 walls. Fiberglass is by far your cheapest. It's been around forever. I'm not saying it's the best insulation out there because it is by far not, but you can get it for about 53 cents a square foot. And then that rigid foam, like I talked about earlier, it is super expensive. It's $55 a panel, which is a 4x8 sheet, so crazy expensive. Then when you get into the wet blown cellulose, I reached out to a couple insulation companies here in town. It runs about $2.10 a square foot for the blown recycled material. Next would be the open cell, so a 3-inch open cell. You don't get as much R value per inch per open cell as you do closed. So a 3-inch would be $3.05 per square foot. And then we'd move to the closed cell, which is probably gonna be your best bet. So 2 inches of that ran about $2.50. And probably the best option that the insulation company had was to go through and blow a 2-inch closed cell foam and then put an R19 fiberglass bat insulation over the top of that. They also said they could come back in with blown cellulose. That was gonna range anywhere from $3.45 a square foot all the way up to $4. So there's a wide variety of pricing when it comes to your interior wall insulation out there. You know me, like I said, I'm cheap. I hope I don't regret doing certain things up here because all of this is free labor. You know, I do all this myself. I have to hire this out, so I'm paying not only for the materials, but for this company's time to go through and install it as well. So let's move up to the attic insulation next. So when it comes to attic insulation, we're a little more limited to what we can use versus what we could put in the walls. But again, this building here, I didn't put storage trusses up there, so I can put as much insulation up there as I want. But once we break things down, first off, we could utilize fiberglass bats. Now I could probably knock this whole building out, or at least the upstairs, in probably a day, give or take. Next would be a R30 blown fiberglass insulation. That's where you get the hose, the hoppers, all that stuff. Somebody's feeding it, somebody's upstairs spraying it in. And then you have the R30 blown cellulose up there. Now the fiberglass, you need more inches to get the same R factor as you would with cellulose. Cellulose, again, being the recycled newspaper. It is organic though, so it's prone to moisture, but they do use a chemical in it called very nice, borate, which goes through and it kind of inhibits the growth of mold, and it's a fire retardant, but it's really dusty as well. And blown cellulose is more prone to settle, so you may have to come back in a couple years and put another couple inches in there to get that same R30 that it should have been at initially. Fiberglass, it's a good option, but it's kind of a pain to spray that. And again, these are all DIY so far. I can do all these. I can rent the hopper. You need 2 people, unfortunately, one to be feeding it constantly, one to go upstairs and spraying it all over the place. And then my last option would be spray foam. Again, I'd have to have a professional company come out and do that. I never planned to spray foam this building, so I had actually gone through and put 6 roof vents in, and I have 16 soffit vents. So if I wanted to spray foam this, I'd have to go up, close all of those roof vents off and all of my soffit vents, because with spray foam, you want a nice tight building, or potentially I could go with an open cell up there. But again, that's not the options that I'm looking at. So per price for an R30 bat insulation, it runs at $1.28 a square foot. Then if I'm looking at blown fiberglass, it is 38 cents a square foot. Blown cellulose right now at the big box stores is 36 cents a square foot. And spray foam, it's just not going to be an option for me. Alrighty, so after all the research and comparing of prices, my decision for the walls is going to be with an R19 fiberglass batt insulation with the paper face. That way I can staple it up into the walls and not worry about it coming down until I get a wall covering up. Now I figure I can get this entire building done for about $700 if I buy it at Menards. They've got 11% rebate going on right now, and I've also got a couple bags that I've picked up off of Marketplace prior to this happening. So let's say R19 batts for about $700, give or take. I won't know for sure until I start installing it. Now when it comes to the attic, what I've decided to do is go with a R30 fiberglass blown-in insulation. I think I'm gonna get the most bang for the buck doing that. I don't have to worry about that fiberglass settling like cellulose. The downfall is if I install it myself DIY style, I'm gonna be spending about $925 just for the materials. Then I've gotta rent the machine, gotta have 2 people, one feeding the hopper continuously, me up in the attic blowing it in, wearing a respirator, making sure I'm getting it at the right height, which I've never done this before, and I'm really not looking forward to doing that either. So I checked with another insulation company and talked to them, met them at another event, told him what I had, and he's like, oh man, you know, we'll get you a quote on that. And I said, hey, that'd be cool. He's probably giving me a YouTube price because they're gonna get some free advertisement out of it, but he quoted me an R30 blown-in fiberglass for $975 out the door. So $50 more than it would cost for just me to buy the material. That's a no-brainer. So we are doing the R30 fiberglass hired out for $975. And that's probably the best bargain that I've found on any truck or anything where I don't have to climb up there and do it myself. Well, what do you guys think? Am I just being a big old cheapskate putting 1970s fiberglass batt insulation in the walls? I don't know. You know, this is a detached garage on a budget, so I think this is gonna work out fine. I can always go back upstairs and add more inches to get even an R50 up there if I ever think that I need that. But again, I'm on a tight budget and I think this is gonna work out really well. So now we have the insulation covered. Let's move over to the wall coverings. So when it comes to the wall coverings, we have a ton of different options you can use to finish your garage or shop. I'm gonna try to stay more on the budget side, but I do wanna give you a lot of the options that you can pick up at your big box stores, such as first being metal panels. Now, metal panels in a wood structure may not, I don't know, it may not fit, but this is a great thing to use in a metal building to match your outsides. The benefit of this is, man, as soon as you install it, you screw it up, you're done. It comes pre-finished, but it does come at a price tag. It runs about $28 for a 3x6 panel. Good thing is it's very good for critters. You know, if you've got mice or rats or something getting into your shop, it's gonna be very hard for them to get through the outside panel and then back to the inside panel. But again, that's not really the look that I'm going for. Then I could use plywood, a nice smooth plywood. It depends which grade you go. You can get something just sanded. You can go through and use something really nice like a cherry and you could stain it, but it ranges anywhere between about $35 and $90 per 4x8 sheet for that. Another option would be pegboard. I used a lot of this in my previous 24x24 garage. It worked out awesome because I have a ton of hooks. I always buy it in 3/8 that's already pre-finished white. That way I screw it up and I'm done. I mean, that is one option that we could utilize in here, at least for certain parts of it, but it runs about $24 for a 4x8 sheet. Another option would be the slat board. That's pretty cool stuff. It comes pre-finished as well, usually in a black or a white, where you stick the hooks into the slats there. Again, once you screw it up, it's instantly finished for you. But again, it comes at a pretty hefty price tag, and you got to buy all the specific hooks for that one. But they run at the box stores about $45 for a 4x8 sheet there. Another neat option would be I love smart siding. out there. It works great, but you can actually buy the 4x8 sheets of Smart Side. Again, it's pre-primed, has the cedar or smooth look. Boom, you just come shoot it up with a nail gun up on your walls, or even screw it in, and you're done. But it comes in at about $43 per 4x8 sheet there too. The downfall is, since I have such tall ceilings, I would have a seam at the 8-foot mark, and then another 4-foot section up there. So it may not be as clean a look as I'm going for. And then probably the best or most appealing option would be to use a drywall. So you could either use a 4x8, and here I could actually use a 4x12 and just run it quickly down there. The downfall is then if you decide to mud and tape it. Everything settles around here in Kansas, so once you get it done, it's going to be prone to crack. It's not real durable. If you bang something into it, you know, you could dent it, poke a hole through it, but it's also not that hard to repair. But I'm not done with this garage, and I don't know when I'm going to be done with it, you know, because I still want to be adding air and electrical and all those things. But once you put the drywall, mud, and tape it, you're done. Now everything else has to be run on the outside of it, but it is very budget appealing. So it runs about $10. If you buy it in bulk, you can get it around about $9.25 right now per 4x8 sheet. That's a big contender right now for me. And the last would be OSB. A lot of guys will go through and use 7/16 OSB, kind of the wafer board out there. It's very, very durable. You know, it's not very fire retardant, but it is very durable. Screw it up to the walls, and then you can actually screw stuff into the OSB. It doesn't matter where a stud is. Then you can basically do whatever you want. If you screw the walls in, then you can unscrew it, pull your panels back down, do anything that you need to behind the walls. So that is a very big contender with a lot of folks out there too. Right now it runs about $15.50. If you buy it in bulk, you can get it a little bit cheaper, about $14 at the big box stores now. So all these options are good. Prices vary all over the place. Again, I'm trying to stay within a budget. This is a shop. You know, I want to do the man cave thing, but who cares? It's not like I'm going to be having parties over here and stuff. We're here to work on old C10s and other junk out here. So it doesn't have to be the prettiest thing in the world. We can decorate it, but I think I've got things narrowed down. Why don't you guys type down, before I tell you what I'm going to do in here, why don't you type down in the comments what you think the best option for a 30x40 wood building, 2x6 walls to be finished off would be. So after weighing all the pros and cons of the different types of wall coverings, I've decided to go with 7/16 OSB, not only up on the ceiling, but on the walls. Again, it's probably not the best looking wall covering for a garage, but I mean, look at all the old junk trucks that I work on. I mean, it's not all about appearance to me, but I think it is going to be the most durable. I can screw it up on the walls, take it back down if I ever need to. If I want to fancy it up, I can always prime and paint it too. But I think that's going to be, you know, the best bang for the buck for me. Now I'm going to go through and buy all of this at my local Home Depot. It's closest to me. Lowe's is the same price right now, and I can get a bulk pricing for it if I go through and buy a bunk or more than 68 sheets at a time. So I can get my OSB for $14.02. I'll obviously watch for more sales and see if I can do anything better. But what I've also chosen to do is to use some pegboard too. My plan is to put my workbench on that front wall over there. So I'm just gonna run that entire front wall to the 8-foot mark of white pegboard. Super fast. It's gonna give me a lot of different options to hang stuff on those walls behind my toolbox or workbenches. And it's really, you know, an extra $10, but you know, whoop-de-woo, I spend another $80. It's done instantly. And I don't want to have different, you know, wall coverings that aren't flush with each other too. Well, what do you guys think? You know, I am not one to shy away from criticism. Is this going to look stupid? You know, doing all the insulation that I chose, the R19 for $700, the R30 blown in for $975. You know, I'll probably be close to $1,000 on OSB and pegboard too, but really that's pretty cheap compared to putting metal walls up or using smart paneling and all that. Just let me know, I'm really interested to hear what you guys think. But again, this is a budget shop, so let me have it. Well, that's going to do it for another episode of Chad's a Big Fat Cheapskate, and I hope this video could help you guys out, see the different types of options of insulation and wall coverings that you could put in your buildings or shops. Now, you always don't have to do the most expensive, or you don't have to do the cheapest thing like I would, but I'm here to use this as a shop. I want to finish it up so I can bring my trucks in here and actually start working. I'm not going to be like, ooh, look at my fancy walls. I really just need it to be bright, Well, if you guys haven't, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you come back because now we got to go to the store and buy all the materials and get it installed, and then I got to decide, am I going to prime and paint this? Which I probably will because I want it to be, really bright in here, and then I can start putting stuff on the walls. And oh yeah, I've got my own P.O. box now, so if any of you guys are interested in like sending me old 67 to 72 C10 stuff to like hang up on the walls, check out the description below. I'll put my address down there, and I'm really wanting to like make this place look pretty C10 cool. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Well, I appreciate your time and thanks for watching. I'm an idiot. I'm gonna get C10 cool.